Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So we just want to give you guys some updates on some stories that have been developing in the last 72 hours. We first talked about this back, I think it was on Sunday, where we were talking about how the Russians were going to be putting forth a bill that was going to allow them to invoke some emergency war powers, which were going to basically kickstart their military-industrial complex into overdrive, get people working day and night in order to manufacture weapons that are becoming increasingly in short supply. And the reason why this is concerning was, of course, because that means that the war is going to expand, that Russia is not going to buckle under the sanctions, that they are in this for the long haul, and they are not going to succumb to the attritional pressure of these sanctions. So we're going to talk about that in a minute, because that has now been officiated by the Financial Times, good old mainstream media source. And that's why you guys come to this channel, because we get you the news before a lot of other people do. Now, before I get into that, I want to say that we are going to be interviewing Joel Skousen, who is renowned in the preparedness community for his work on strategic relocation, where to live when the shizzy hits the fizzy. Where's the best place to ride it out? Now, as sensationalist as that might sound, he has a very, very sensible macroeconomic outlook, and that has allowed him to make some very, very uncanny, accurate predictions about what is happening right now. Like back in 2013, he distinctly said, this wasn't an off-the-cuff statement, this was a direct prediction. He said that in 8 to 10 years, that's when we're going to get into a war with Russia. He said this back in 2013, okay? And his predictions for what comes after this are even more unnerving. And to give you some insight into that, his ideas map on perfectly to Dr. Peter Vincent Pry's ideas of nuclear war, okay, and how that is going to unfold. Now, like I say, this guy's predictions are not, out there, pie in the sky, dollar's going to collapse tomorrow and there's going to be riots in the streets. He has a very, very sensible outlook on how this is going to play out. So I think that you guys are in for a treat with respect to this interview. Again, if you have any comments or questions, ask him in the comment section below. Make sure you use his name so I'll be able to search it. Just put the name Joel, okay? I'll search it by that on the YouTube comment search, and I'll try to scour those while we're doing the interview and posit some of those questions to him. Now, in terms of, there's one more thing I want to talk about. These bots in the comment section that say Canadian Prepper WhatsApp with the number, people are still falling for this day after day after day. I get 10 emails a day with people wondering if I'm messaging them on WhatsApp. No, I am not. Look, I don't know if people are new to the internet, but guys, know that I will never message you on WhatsApp, okay? There should be a check mark beside my name to indicate that that's me that you're talking to. These bots, no matter how many we block, no matter how many times we delete, when I say we, I'm talking about all YouTubers, because they go after the big accounts, because it's obviously working. People are falling for this. I will never ask you for money. Heaven forbid people have actually given money to these scammers. If you do have some spare time on your hands and you want to have fun with these a-holes, just lead them on, string them on, and just waste their time. Or even better, if you're like a hacker or something, I'm not going to say do anything illegal, but you might want to flex your skills a bit with these clowns, because these people need to be put in their place. Unfortunately, YouTube cannot fix the problem yet. I realize it's a complicated problem because it's not a one-to-one impersonation. They're using these weird combinations of of numbers and stuff like that. So no matter how many times you delete them, they just make a new account and they change one thing in the title. So anyways, guys, don't fall for it. Hopefully that this will, this warning will have about a week's time before people start falling for it once again. But I tell you, man, if you're falling for stuff like that, you're going to fall for a lot worse when the shizzy hits the fizzy. A lot of you got to work on your street smarts, and especially on the internet nowadays. We're living in the virtual age. Virtual street smarts, okay? Be guarded with your information. Don't give anybody your information online unless you know exactly who you're talking to. Now, this is from the Financial Times. So the Duma gives first approval to laws moving Russia towards a war economy. The only reason why Russia would do this is if the war was going to expand. You know, all this talk about they're winning in the East, you know, they have situations brewing in Kaliningrad and Lithuania and Transnistria. Now they got the Baltic to worry about. They got this Norway blockade of their outpost in Svalbard. So things are flaring up all over the place. They have northern Ukraine with the Belarusians and Lviv and Kiev. So the war is only going to intensify, it would appear. And for this reason, the Russians are ramping up their production of cruise missiles because, as we've talked about, they only have a limited capacity to make these. First of all, you can only make so many, and they only have a limited supply. Now, there's certain things that they have a very large supply of, but you got to understand that they're using a lot of stuff, and they have the same limitations as NATO. I mean, NATO has supply issues. Okay, that's why these European countries are scrambling to put together whatever they can for the Ukrainians, because they really don't have a lot. Their armies aren't that big. In fact, Russia wins in a war in Europe 9 times out of 10, especially if they start to employ tactical nukes. And this is one of the biggest concerns, is that they are sitting on this stockpile of very expensive, very finely tuned, low radiation, low yield nukes that they could leverage. And whether they're going to do that to make a point or whether they're going to do that because of these depleting stockpiles is unknown. But the fact of the matter is they could probably do it, and likely not much will come of it depending on the context in which they use it. And when I say nothing will come of it, I mean in terms of NATO intervention. NATO's already fighting the war, but they haven't taken it to the point of a direct one-to-one confrontation. Would that be enough to move them into war with NATO directly? I don't know. A lot of people don't think so. A lot of people who are experts in this field don't think so. A lot of people think that we are very, very ill prepared to go to war with the Russians. However, the Russians have their limitations also. The state could impose special economic measures during military operations, requiring firms to supply goods and services to the military at the demand of the Russian government. This is going to oblige employees to work overtime to support Russia's invasion of Ukraine. This is going to compel employees of businesses providing goods to the military to work at night, on weekends and holidays, and without annual leave, working around the clock to manufacture missiles. This is not good. Now, here's a direct quote from the Prime Minister of Russia. The load on the defense industry has increased significantly. In order to ensure the supply of weapons and ammunition, it is necessary to optimize the work of the military-industrial complex and enterprises that are part of cooperation chains. This was stressed by Deputy Prime Minister of the Russian government, Yuri Borisov. This is a harbinger for what is to come. We also have a rift developing between Norway and Russia in the Barents Sea. There was this agreement in the Barents Sea, which is basically a sea in the north in the Arctic, and they cut a line down the middle and they said, okay, you guys have this half, we'll have this half. They agreed to that, and they agreed to sustaining this treaty because it has implications for maintaining global fish stocks. And this is one of the other downsides of this decoupling, is that all of the global treaties that ensured that we regulate the ecology of the world that sustains us is now going to go out the window. Okay, just like Europe is going back to coal, and all these other things are being lifted. All these other restrictions that were imposed during the twilight of the green agenda are now being rolled back, because it's all about energy now. It's all about every man for himself. And that means that a more rapid mass destruction of our habitat that sustains us, which is not good. So the shizzy's hitting the fizzy, and it's going to get worse. Now, JP Morgan is saying $380 a barrel if Russia decides to leverage its ability to produce oil and put it on the market. If they decide to weaponize oil, they can pull 5 million barrels off the market, they're saying, and still be good. Still be able to sustain the war machine. Now, this is a worst case scenario, but it actually could be much, much worse than that. Some people are saying no. I think Citibank is saying, well, it's actually going to be recession, and we're going to see demand destruction, and oil is going to plummet to $45, and the price of gas is going to be really dirt cheap again. But I'm guessing that we're going to see stagflation. I'm guessing that we are going to see prices continue to go up on the staple commodities that we need in order to get the job of living done. And we're going to see wages stagnate. We're going to see, and because of that, we're going to see riots. We're going to see unrest. Stagflation breeds civil unrest. It breeds civil instability in developing nations in particular, which of course leads to a lot of those developing nations are where we get raw materials for stuff. So the price of those raw materials goes up. People eventually flee those countries because civil war breaks out, and that creates refugee crises in developed nations, and which adds to the debt load and the stress on that population, which leads to increased populism, which leads to, more radical political movements and incidents and potential collapse of those societies as well, which is what you're seeing in many European countries. So, not looking good. The war is going to expand into the Baltics. It does look like. I don't see why Russia would feel the need now to invoke these kind of emergency war powers and kickstart the military-industrial complex there if they weren't on the brink of losing the war of attrition that is being waged by the West, because this is what NATO is trying to do. NATO is trying to make it so that Russia simply doesn't have the means to progress in this campaign, okay? They're trying to get them to the point where they can't make it as far as Kaliningrad. And the Russians are saying, well, now they're on the precipice of having a general mobilization and conscription. That's what's going to happen next. We're going to see a general mobilization of the Russian military. And it doesn't seem like anybody's backing down, that this is only ratcheting up. So the good news is that according to Joel Skousen, and as you're going to hear in this interview we have coming up, unless his mind has changed in the last few weeks, that he thinks that, things are we are inevitably bound for a major, major confrontation between Russia, China, and the United States. There is still time. Okay, we do still have a bit of time. In the grand scheme of things, it's not much time, but when measured in days, weeks, and months, we still have a bit of time to get ahead of this and strategically relocate ourselves. Speaking of which, I got to get going, my friends. Remember, ignore the WhatsApp bots. And if you want to, waste a bit of time, go mess with them a little bit. Lead them on, but just don't use your real phone numbers or anything like that, because I don't want you guys, putting your accounts at risk or anything. But if you got, if you're smart with that kind of thing, mess with them. Otherwise, don't waste your time. I'm just sitting here in the Tesla. I know a lot of you guys, you be hating on the Tesla. I get it. There's pros and cons. We're going to be doing a video, pros and cons of the Tesla. The only reason why we got a Tesla is because of the government incentives to do so. It was a very, very practical economic move. This is not the great thing about a Tesla is that it's like a sports car, and it pretty much destroys most, sports cars that are over 6 figures on the road for much less than that. But it's very practical at the same time. And a lot of you guys are smoking that Scotty Kilmer, that Scotty Kilmer hate. It's eating you up. You gotta have some hope for the future. And what better company than a company which is made in America, which has all its parts sourced from around the world, like most cars, right? But, you know, have a little fun. I'll tell you what, go and take Tesla for a test drive. You can sign up online. You can go and sign up to take a Tesla for a test drive. Try to get one of the performance editions of one of their cars. And tell me that you didn't have a good time after that. All right. And I know some of you guys are going to say, well, you're going to have a lot of fun when it breaks down and you have to pay to fix it. Yeah, you know, I mean, life sucks. Life is going to be tough, as we all know. It's going to get tough. But I can tell you what, it's kind of nice driving by a gas station and thinking I'm never going to go there again unless it's to fill up my gas-guzzling Tundra, which I do still have. You think I'm going to give up the Tundra? Are you crazy? I put so much work into that thing. That is still our Bushmobile. But as an urban commuter, can't go wrong with electric. So let me know. Bring on the hate. Bring on that Scotty Kilmer in the comment section. I'm ready for it. Thanks for watching, guys. Take care. Stay safe. Canadian Prepper out.